go. All right, welcome everybody to the Queer Prophets Podcast. I'm Diane Conklin, and I am beyond thrilled today to have Pauline with us, who is joining us from, is this right? Brisbane, Queensland, Australia.
Yep.
So we are truly now international. Yay!
You are. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
We're an international podcast now. So welcome everybody. This is going to be I'm really excited because Pauline has an interesting story of coming out of the military and then into her own business. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear the story and for her to tell you a little bit about how she does things and what she does and all of that. Just as a reminder, our three big pillars, and we'll stick to these today as close as we can, are inclusion, community, and growth. And so I am just so excited. Pauline, thank you for joining me today. And I know it's really early there, so I even more appreciate you getting up and doing this. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we'll jump into it.
Okay, so my name is Pauline Longdon. I'm a copywriter and marketing strategist. So I write words and help people to strategize the words they need where they need them and to make the best use of them. I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. Australians don't really pronounce syllables very much, so we're very lazy speakers, so it's Brisbane. And yeah, that's me. I've got a military background. I was in the army for about 14 years before I was discharged with major depression. And something that really threatened my life turned out to be the biggest thing that saved my life. And I'm happy to share that story.
I really want to start with that because I read your story. I knew a little bit about your story. We've actually never met in person, but we've kind of been following each other. I think even before, this thing we call social media now, we were aware of each other. And I read your story. I think actually I might have saw you speak it. It was put up when you did it at an event. And so I was like, wow, I didn't know all that. So tell us a little bit, it's been, 5 or 6 minutes if it takes you that long, and tell us a little bit about kind of that piece of the military. And although the military certainly is different over there, it's sort of the same kind of thing and kind of how that happened.
It kind of is because being a gay woman in the military, I mean, in 1992, they made it officially legal to be gay in the army or the military in Australia, but they did nothing to increase our quality of life. It just meant that you couldn't be hounded and like kicked out for being gay. That was about the only thing that happened. People still had really negative beliefs about it. I was with my partner for about 5 years before we even got to live together, because they would just purposely send us apart, one of us to one side of Australia, one of us to the other side, and just make things difficult. But the happy ending of that is that we've been together for 21 years. So, obviously we're meant to be.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So to say that didn't cause any stress would be a big lie. And so it's a compounding thing. But 1 year I was sent on 2 back-to-back deployments and like an operational service to warlike situations. And being away from the family for a year, being under incredible stress and strain. I mean, if you just had one deployment for the whole year, that would have been good. But the stopping, starting, and people dying, people being born whilst you're away, it's pretty traumatic. And also being in the same-sex relationship, I wasn't getting the support like back home. The spouses were being looked after. They were being making sure their welfare. Meanwhile, my partner Ray was back at home struggling a little bit because she didn't have the support that everyone else had. She is a serving member too, so she had to do a job and also have the stress of her partner being away. So that really started to take a toll. And then I got back from my second deployment, and I was basically, I was promoted to major. I was put back online, and they said, well, we're looking at sending you back overseas for another 6 months. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And they said, well, because I had a high skill job. I was a nursing, ICU nursing and trauma nursing. So I was in high demand, and I was a major. So they said, yeah, we need your skill set. I said, well, I can't do this. And anyway, so I just went, you know what, I've been depressed for, ages. And I had a boss on the first deployment that bullied me And when I say 24/7, it really is when you're on deployment, because you eat, sleep, shower, toilet, everything right near people. You know, they're always in your grid square, as we would say. So she really rode me and rode me hard. So that had a horrible effect on me. So I ended up with confessing to them that I had depression, ended up with major depression and on medications. And basically that was a slow and slippery ride out of the army. So I left the army, and the day that I left the army, I couldn't read or write. My brain was absolutely fried from the depression and the medications and everything like that they subjected me to. And so that day was supposed to be my last day on planet Earth. I decided that I'd picked out a tree I was going to drive into on the way home, and that was it. Because I couldn't read or write, I wasn't even going to leave a note to say what had happened. It was just going to be, I was going to go out as anonymously as I came into the world. So that's how that transpired. But that day, for whatever reason, my high need for perfectionism kicked in. And just as I was about to hit the tree, a voice yelled in my head, you know, what the F are you doing? You know, stop the car. You're going to stuff this up. You're going to be a vegetable. And you know what that looks like as a nurse. I'd nursed heaps of people who had, you know, had failed suicide attempts. So it's like, you've been a failure up until now. Why do you think you're going to succeed at this? You're probably going to stuff it up big time. So I did, pulled over the car, stopped crying, did what every sane person would do, drove home, curled up in a ball of snot and tissues and cried myself to sleep. And then woke up later on and just went, you know what? And I was like, you know, swearing to God and everything, like just saying, if I'm meant to be here, you better sort this shit out, because, you know, I'm not going to do it like unsupported. So then I just started to find ways, because the medication that they had me on in the army really mucked around with my brain. They actually overdosed me. So I had no faith in medicine and doctors anymore. So I went down a alternative healing path with mindset and everything like that. Started to get rid of the rot out of my brain, and started a business, because I didn't want to go back to nursing. I had no faith in the medical system. So how can you sell that as a nurse when you don't believe it in it yourself? So yeah, I got into business and failed at a couple of businesses, to be honest, because I didn't know what I was doing. But each failure that you have is a step forward. I'm like a highly inflated basketball. Each time I bounce, like I fall, I bounce, but I bounce higher the next time. So that's been my life, as a track record of failing and falling, but I bounce higher the next time. And that's kind of like my mantra. I have.
Yeah, and you know, as a perfectionist, you know, the failing part is always relative, right? I mean,
yeah,
you know, things didn't work out maybe the way you wanted to, but my guess is that, you know, you didn't lose everything, and you didn't, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, failure is a relative piece, right? I mean, I think part of what we all experience in business is sort of this changing, you know, of the guard, if you will. We start out one place and we try some things, and some things work and some things don't. And I mean, I don't know, was that the case, or was it really, no, I'm shutting that down and starting fresh?
There were a couple of losing everything. Like I had a very successful healing business, and I had international clients, and students came from overseas to Australia to be taught by me, when they had teachers in their neighborhood. And then that actually shut down overnight, and we almost lost everything. Basically the guru came over from America, thought that it would be a piece of cake to come into Australia and just look like this, I don't know, this amazing person, and the local TV stations made her look like a charlatan. So basically my business shut down overnight. But that was a moment that I was transitioning from what I call woo-woo to the woo-hoo, which is copywriting. And so I just pivoted and bounced and then went straight into copywriting and marketing, and haven't looked back since. I love it. Love it.
So how did you get into the copywriting and the marketing piece?
Yeah, well, it was actually because of that woo-woo business. I got it up to, I think, about $250,000. I thought I could get it up to, $500,000 a year, if not maybe $1 million. I could see it being global, and because I had such a good personality based business, and everyone is like wanted to know more about me than kind of the woman who started it. So but then that kind of died. But while I was doing the business, I just needed to know how to market it. So I actually got a marketing company in Australia to write what they would call a shock and awe pack, like a Dan Kennedy style thing. That's, you know, soup to nuts, online, offline marketing funnel is what we call them now. And it was awful. Like, I cried when I got it, because it actually made me look like I was a charlatan and that I shouldn't be trusted. And I wouldn't have trusted myself reading that copy. And I said, oh, can I have this rewritten? And they said, well, no, if you think you can write it better, go ahead and do it. And I went, seriously, I don't think I can do any worse. So I went away, learned a bit of copywriting, wrote my own package, and then people started to notice. They're going, who's writing your copy? That is really great. And I went, I am. Like, what's so good about it? And then people started to ask me to write for them, and I ended up writing on a marketing team for about 3 years, which was a baptism of fire. And I loved it because I got to write just about everything that you can for copy. So I never said no to a job, and it was just constantly high level copy, but I was getting paid peanuts. But that's what apprenticeships are all about, really.
Right. Sure. So since you've been working in your own business and doing copywriting and marketing, have you had any negative experiences being, I mean, you're pretty out online and everything. It's not a secret that, you know, that you're a lesbian, that you're in a long-term partnership. Have you had any really positive or any really negative, impact from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was writing for a Christian company, and I knew that they were Christian, and then when I signed the contract, sexuality was the only thing that you couldn't be terminated for. I thought, that's peculiar. Anyway, so for about, I don't know, maybe about 10 months, I kept my private life private off Facebook. But then earlier this year, it was our 21st anniversary. I said, happy anniversary, Ray, blah, blah, blah. And then within a couple of months, I was no longer working for that company, and they're a huge company. And that kind of kicked me in the guts, because I thought, I've been there for long enough that I felt I shouldn't have to hide anymore. Well, anyway, silver lining is that now I can just be myself again online, and I actually don't have to compromise on my integrity, because if anyone knows me, that's, for me, the worst C word in the English language is not the filthy word that everyone thinks it is. It's actually compromise. Because if you compromise, you're a loser. You've lost straight away. So I never compromise. I like to meet a nice point, a win-win in the middle there, if we can get that.
So how difficult do you think it is, not only in Australia, but just as an LGBTQ or a queer person? How difficult do you think it is to live that life without some compromise, whether you own your own business or not?
Yeah, it is really difficult, I guess. I mean, my friend, I just went to my friend's wedding last weekend, and they've been together for 28 years. I was at their original commitment ceremony 26 years ago. And it took, I mean, we only just had the law passed a year and a bit ago where we could actually legally get married. But what does that even mean? I mean, just because you can legally do something, it doesn't mean that society accepts it. And that's one of the things that you and I have spoken about online, several times is, I know that sometimes acceptance is really difficult for people. And I say, well, if you can't accept us, at least freaking tolerate us, because we tolerate you. But yeah, I think it is difficult to live your truth at times without having to hold a little bit of yourself back. And I don't think, other people really appreciate the hard work that goes into maintaining an acceptable persona for people, that they can handle it. And then it's like, oh, you don't have to push it in my face. It's like, well, you push straightness in my face. I've grown up, I've grown up ever since I was a little kid, watching straight people kiss on TV, movies, everywhere. And you don't think that was pushing that in my face. So, but I think also not being that rabid, like, this is me and I'm going to do this in front of you. It's like, then you're actually the opposite of what you want to be. I just want to live my life and just be me, not some extreme version of myself. So and I think that's important wherever you are. And this comes into inclusivity and inclusion, is just be yourself. I mean, I would just love a world where we could just be, fly your freak flag and be proud of who you are,
Right.
without having to compromise or cut yourself short. It is tough.
Yeah, and that's true, right? Whatever your freak flag is, right? Whether it's color your skin, or that you're a nerd, or that you're queer, or whatever the thing is, right? There's so much judgment about, and I think here I think it's worse now than it's ever been, with, and not to get into the political stuff, but with the administration and those kinds of things. So are there challenges, Ray, see there, look, I know that happens all the time, right? I'm sorry, Pauline, are there challenges? Do you think that you have additional challenges because now you're out and living your truth as far as business goes? Do you have people that you think, have either said, or that, you didn't get the business for that one thing other than this Christian organization?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I sometimes misrepresent it or misread it as me being female, because sometimes, like being a female copywriter, people go, oh, you can't write as good as a male. And it's like, no, I can write better than men. And actually, I wrote a sales letter recently that was supposed to be like from a guy. He's very testosterone driven, really great guy. And everyone thought he wrote it himself because it was so, ballsy and all that sort of stuff. So I can write in any voice that I need to. Right. But I sometimes, as I said, I think that I don't get things because I'm a female, but I'm not sure if there's actually a little bit more to it. I tend not to concentrate on that too much, but and I think if I did, that'd just be another disappointment, wouldn't it? It's like, oh man, because right. I mean, I said to someone one day, it said, I don't know what the issue is with me writing and being a female. I don't type with my vagina, like, and I guess as a lesbian, I don't type with my tongue. It's like, we'd use fingers like the guys, I don't get it. So I just don't understand some people. And so I think, Diane, it's just trying to find your tribe and working with people who bring out the best in you so you can bring out the best in them.
That's perfect. Yeah. So Pauline, give us a couple of tips. I don't know that first of all, tell us a little bit more about, before I ask the next question, tell us a little bit more about what specifically copywriting is.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I didn't explain it. So copywriting is simply writing words that persuade people to do something, to take some kind of action. So, you'll see Facebook ads, you'll see sales pages. Basically, copywriting is writing words anywhere that sell something. And it doesn't have to be something monetarily. It can be just selling an idea or a concept or an opinion. It just depends. So that's pretty much what copywriting is. Yeah.
So emails, somebody had to write those, right? That's copywriting. Ad copy.
Yeah, exactly.
In magazines, in the newspaper, when you see ads for things. If you're online and you're looking at something, the sales copy or the copy that's trying to convince you, that talks about the bonuses and the price and what the offer is. And, all of that is copy. And so we don't always think of it, I think, that way, but having the skill of writing in your business is critical, and being able to write in a way that's sort of natural, that sounds like you, which you've alluded to a couple times, is really, really important. And so do you have a couple of tips that you could give us for people? I mean, pretty much every business that you have, there's written word involved. So do you have a couple tips that you can give us as far as, making our copy better?
Yeah, well, I was also going to say, even when words are spoken, usually they're scripted and they're copywritten. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that look really polished online and everything like that, but they are actually scripted. They are sticking to something that someone's written, even if it's themselves. So I think writing in your own business is such an important skill to have. So one of my biggest tips is know who you're writing to. And so people would say, you know, create an avatar, which is, you know, okay, so what's the demographic of the person that you're writing to? Are they male, female? What's their age group? Blah, blah, blah. And I even like to get beyond the age group and think about what generation they're in, because when you're talking to particular generations, there are words that you do and don't use. Like for the baby boomers, you're not going to go YOLO and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, for the millennials, you're not going to be talking about Woodstock and, you know, smoking weed and, you know, that kind of stuff. You're going to be, you know, talking about vaping and other, you know, other cooler things for them. Right. So knowing who you're writing to is important, but then you get into the psychographics. So, you know, what are they actually reading? What shows are they watching? What version of the news do they watch? You know, CNN or other things. And then something that I call emoji graphics. No one really talks about these, but these are the emotions that people have when they interact with the world. You know, what are they triggered by and how do they feel about certain things? And so what I like to do is see what people feel about and what their emotions are about certain brands and companies and the buyer experience. Have they been let down? Because, I mean, Dan Kennedy used to say this so eloquently, is that you don't, you're not selling to virgins. They have been sold to time and time again. And sometimes you're in a negative balance. So to know that before you write to them. So that's all the avatar that you're building. But so people have this imaginary person that they're writing to. What I like to do is I like to dimensionalize that 2D character. And I like to write to one person. We've heard that advice time and time again. But I find someone in my social circle that I can then write to. So for a lot of the copy that I write, I'm writing to my mother because I love her. And I think when you write to someone that you love, that comes out in your words. So I love my mum. B, she's the biggest skeptic in the world. She will call bullshit faster than anything else. And it's funny because when I've written some of the sales letters for her, for other clients, I get her to read them later on. She goes, oh, wow. Yes. Where could I sign up for that? And it's like, yes, that's like the win. So that's validation for me that I'm actually hitting her where she lives. And that's the biggest thing as well. So always write to one person.
And you would only do that if your mother was the target for that particular writing, correct?
Correct.
Or age group, female.
Yeah. And so then I've got other people that I write to. Sometimes I write to my partner, sometimes I write to friends. The letter that I wrote for the male copywriter, I actually had two of my male copywriting friends that I was writing to. One is a guy who thinks he's eaten a bit and doesn't need to be in the room. It's like, I know all that crap, you know, I don't need to be there. And the other guy was like, I will sell both of my kidneys to be in that room. I need to be there, kind of thing. So I just had, it was kind of like this, you know, two wolves story. It's like, okay, so which one are you going to feed? So obviously it was the guy that was really desperate to be there, and the sales letter went really well. So that's how to write to your audience. And also just think like, and that's why I say have friends in your social circle, because then your copy comes across very conversational instead of this very formal, like, because when people sit down to write, they think they have to write the next American novel, great American novel. No, you don't. You've just got to have a conversation with people. And then when people think about selling in copy, they think, oh, I have to impress people. But something I learned from the woo-woo crowd that I was in is a statement that I just hold true as a mantra is bless, not impress. So what that means is don't try to impress people with your words, but bless them with the solution that your words give them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. You know, back up just a little bit. One of the things that you said, I just want to expound on a little bit, you know, when you're talking about who you're talking to, right? So think about if you're talking to somebody who's 20, right, versus somebody who's 50, the same person, female, male, whatever. The difference between talking to a male and or somebody who's 20 and somebody's 50, you would talk to them and use different words, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the same thing, not always, but many times you would talk to a guy a little differently about a particular thing, right, than you would a woman, right? Not always, but, you know, again, these things are kind of generalities, but, you know, you wouldn't always do that. And sometimes you don't have to be that specific, right? Because you're writing to, you know, you're selling to both male and female. But when you're writing, if you write specifically to one or the other, many times people are afraid to do that, right? Because it's like talking about your target market. But Diane, I'm both male and female. I know, but if you'll write to one or the other, your message will hit them. And you're also going to get, if you're writing to men, you're also going to get women, right? It's not like you're excluding them. But
well, that letter that I wrote, females were attracted to that letter as well from that male copywriter. And what I call that is collateral consumers. I mean, you write to someone, and that's a good point that you raise, is that so many people are trying to write to everyone, but they write to no one. So stop hedging your bets and trying to write to everyone, because it's like, just imagine that there's someone standing in the middle of a mall and they go, "Hey everyone, I've got this really great deal," and like everyone's just walking past, not even listening. But then you go, "Excuse me, lady in the red shirt, I've got a really good message for you." And she goes, "Oh, okay, you're talking to me."
Right.
So at least you got one person in that whole mall listening to you, rather than just everyone zipping past and someone looking at you and not taking any action.
Yeah.
So people are afraid of that risk, but to not do it is riskier.
Yeah, definitely. So that was some great advice. So, one of the things that people often say, Pauline, is well, I have writer's block, or I don't know where to start. Or I don't know how to start, or, the first words are hard. What advice would you give somebody who has sort of that problem of, I don't know how to get started?
Yeah. So, I'm going to give you the cold hard truth right now. I don't believe that there is a writer's block. And let me explain. Writer's block is a luxury that people just give themselves to procrastinate. When I was a nurse, I certainly didn't have nurse's block. You walk into the pan room, get a pan and go, I don't know what to do with this. It just doesn't exist in any other profession. There's no plumber's block. There's no, carpenter's block. So stop making excuses. So what I do to overcome even getting near that point is to research. If you can't write something, go and read some more articles, go and just get inspiration elsewhere. One of the things that helps me research is not to only look in the niche that I'm writing for. So what you'll notice is that human behavior is the same no matter how it's packaged. We have commonalities. So what's working in one niche will work in the niche that you're in, because humans are humans. So look and read beyond and research beyond your own niche, because sometimes people go, "Oh, it's all been said before. I don't know how to say it differently." Just say it from yourself, because you have your own perspective. And that's something that I learned along the way, because I was reluctant to do my own podcast and release my own material, because I thought, oh man, everyone and their dog's been saying this since the 1900s. And then someone said, "No, but Pauline, your perspective is different." So now that's known affectionately as Pauline's perspective. And so remember, you've got your own individual slant on life. And just, even if you just got 10% of the population interested, or even 5 or 2% of the population interested in what you're saying, you've got millions.
Yep.
So get out there and
people
say
on the planet. Yeah. One of the things I sometimes do, and I don't know if you ever do this, but if I get to the point where I'm like, I just get frustrated and I'm like, I don't know, the starting point, right? I just will sit at the computer and move my fingers on the keyboard. There aren't words, there aren't anything, but pretty soon, it's like, okay, it starts to form. Or sometimes I'll just start writing something, the dog is laying under the table and, whatever. And then pretty soon you're in the mode, you're in that flow of writing. And pretty soon you're like, I've got it. Right. So you just erase the other stuff. And it's pretty easy to copy, to just delete that stuff. But sometimes it's like, the person in motion tends to stay in motion. And so once you start your fingers, or, I'm the old pencil and paper gal. So I do a lot of,
I do that too. Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it takes for me to get started writing, is I need to get away from the computer and go sit with a pad and at the table, and that kinesthetic movement of writing helps me. So that was some great advice. So I'm going to ask you a couple, anything else you want to add specific to copywriting?
Something that you just raised in about the writing out stuff by hand. Yeah, I use a pen and paper as well. But also something that I do is if I see an ad, an email, or a piece of copy that I like, or if it makes me buy, I will write it out by hand. And the reason I do that is because there's, you know, neural pathways between your dominant thumb that you're writing with up to your brain, and it cements it. And they call it myelination. So it actually thickens, and it thickens on your neural pathways, and it becomes your DNA. Good writing becomes your DNA. And I know that there have been authors in the past that have written out Hemingway and all of, I mean, can you imagine writing out a whole novel? But these guys do it. And you know, that's sometimes what you need if you want to be good at what you want to be good at. Copy what other people have done successfully. Now, people will say that practice makes perfect, but it doesn't. Practice makes permanent. So you need to make sure that what you practice is the good stuff, because if you're copying bad writing, then you will get good at bad writing. It's like a golf swing. If you are doing it wrong, but you practice that 100 times, you'll be great at that bad golf swing.
That bad swing.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
And writing's the same way. So just if something actually makes you tingle or makes you buy, then that's good writing, because it's hit you somewhere within your, you know, your body or your psyche or your DNA, and write it out by hand. And because people just forget about that because we're so much into the computers, and it's like, oh, what if I just type it out? No, that's a different motion.
Gary Halbert used to talk about that, right? And I think at one point he said, if find a good sales letter and write it 10 times, handwrite it 10 times, and it, you know, it gets into your you know, the kinesthetic movement, right, is part of that. You're right, the neural pathways. That's great advice. Before I ask you the last two questions, let me ask you this: what's the number one thing you've done this year to grow your business?
Going to America. But each year I go to America a couple of times. But I think it's just, you have to invest in yourself. And but when you do that, like if you go to an event, what I would say to people is have a strategy for being there. Like, you know, if you know someone's speaking, then, you know, make a goal. If they're relevant to you, you know, make a goal to go and meet those people. I go to industry things so that I can meet the people that I want to meet, so that I can be an influencer, so that I can keep propelling my business forward. But if I don't see any benefit in going to that event, I don't buy tickets, because each time I jump on a plane from Australia, it costs about $10,000 all up, you know, to tickets, accommodation, the brutal currency exchange, everything. So, and then also lost time in my business being a sole operator. If I'm not working, then, you know, nothing comes in at the moment. I've got other income streams, but I'm talking about copywriting. So that's something to keep in mind. There is always a high cost. So I go in there like a military, you know, strategy of what I want to get out of things. And I do that for everything in life as well. I'm very strategic with what I do. So that'd be my biggest tip, and what helps my business to move forward and keep growing is just have a strategy and have a clear goal.
The strategy, and then the dedication and the discipline to follow through with it, right? That's the other big thing. So good. Well, this has been great. So let me ask you this though: what's the best business wisdom you've ever gotten, or that you want to share? Either one.
There's so much, but I think what I would really like to share for your audience is just remember, you are not your market, or you're not your audience. Sometimes as copywriters or business owners, we tend to get very tired of what we're doing. We think everyone out there's seen it 1,000 times, or, you know, been presented things like what we're offering. I think you'll be surprised to know that a lot of people have never seen what you've got. Like for headlines, you know, it's like, oh, they laughed as I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, that's a classic headline. And people go, oh, you can't use that. Everyone's heard it. Not everyone's heard it. Not every niche has heard that. Or who else wants to? And it's like, oh man, it's just so old hat. People have been using that forever. And there's a story of Claude Hopkins. He wrote Scientific Advertising, and he was working on a marketing campaign for a really big company for months and months. Then the CEO called them in after a few months and said, you know what, I'm thinking it's time to change out that campaign. I think we're all just really tired of it, and the public have got to be tired of it by now as well. And Claude Hopkins looked at the CEO and said, you know what, it hasn't even launched yet. And see, that's what happens in our business. We get tired of what we're doing. So just remember, you're not your audience. So give the audience a chance to tell you what they're feeling about your stuff before you whip it away from them or try to tweak something. Because a lot of the times we do a lot of work we don't need to, because we think that we know the audience better than they know themselves, and we don't.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting, if you're measuring, right? If you're measuring and you know if something's working, whether you're tired of it or not, if it's continuing to work, you continue to use it, right? But so many times, just like in that story, right? Obviously somebody's not looking at numbers. You know, you don't know what your numbers are, which is one of my big things that I talk a lot about. If you know what your numbers are, then it allows you to make better business decisions and marketing decisions. Because, you know, it's time to do away with this program, but we haven't launched it yet, right? So
exactly,
somebody's not looking at, you know, what's your ROI, what's your return on investment, and if your return on investment is good, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't bring something else in to see if you can increase it, right, and set that new sort of standard. But you certainly don't do away with things. That's something I see people do all the time is, you know, you stop doing what's working because you think it's boring, or you think it's just like the headlines you were talking about, right? Well, everybody's heard those. Yeah, but they work.
Yes.
And so, right. Why go to and this is interesting. Why go to the energy? Why put all that energy out, right? Why go to all of that trouble to create something brandy new when the tried and true stuff still works? Just tweak it a little, right? Put in your work, put in your industry, put in your niche, you know, and use it and see. You know, that's why I have headlines that I've gone back and reused. I've got swipe files both in my computer, and I was matter of fact, just before our call, I've got a 2-drawer lateral file that is nothing but, you know, mail pieces and actual physical stuff that I've kept over the years. And so I go into that stuff a lot and look, and it's like, wow, I haven't seen this one in a while. Wow, I know this one was a really good return on investment for this particular thing. And that's one of the things I love, is being able to pull from all these different industries. People are always like, Diane, why don't you have a niche? My niche is diversity, right? I love being able to pull from the insurance industry and putting it over here to a hair salon, or, you know, that kind of thing. And most people want to do exactly what everyone else in their industry is doing. And so you look the same, right? Instead of pulling something from a different industry and using it, that's an easy way to make yourself stand out a little bit inside of your own niche, however you want to pronounce it, right? So, great. This has been great. So what about social wisdom that you want to share, Pauline? Anything socially that is kind of on the tip of your tongue?
Yeah, well, I think socially and like if we're talking about social media as well, is you know, it goes back to what I said before. Be strategic about what you want to share with people, but how you want to share things with people. What do you want to be known for? You see people on Facebook and social media just having an absolute meltdown, and it's like, you never know who's watching you. And I'm not saying just edit yourself, you know, to within an inch of your life, but you know, just think how you want to be remembered, how you want to be seen. And just, I think this comes from my military career, was being an officer. I know I was always being watched from below and up and down. Basically, you know, everyone was watching me. So there wasn't much, you know, room for, you know, error. So just think that there's a time and a place for everything, and you know, think, okay, so is this going to help my case or my life, or is it going to hurt it? That's the litmus test that I run everything through. So if it's going to hurt me, I don't post it, I don't, you know, share it. But then if it's going to help me in some way, or does it have to help me, can it help someone else? Right. So there's been some fairly raw things that I've shared, because I've had a few anniversaries come up about trying to kill myself, my discharge from the army, and that I shared that, and I got so much engagement on Facebook. And it wasn't because I wanted to get that engagement. It's because I just wanted to genuinely share and let people know that they're not alone.
Yeah, you know, not everything has to be shared on social media. There was a time we didn't have that, right?
Exactly.
And then I think the other point that you make, which I love, right, is people are watching, whether you want them to or not. They're watching. And, you know, I know I've been through some things socially and, you know, a breakup many years ago and from a long-term relationship. And, you know, I just continued to do my thing. And it was interesting how I would get Facebook messages or comments, or people would send me emails about, you know, wow, you know, you're continuing to run your business and you're thriving. And I'm like, what was I supposed to do? Right. Curl up in a ball and die. But people were watching, and I didn't really know they were watching. You know, recently, as I've gone through this sort of health transformation and lost this weight and stuff, you know, people are watching. Whether you think they are or not, whether you want them to or not, even when you don't say things, you know, and you're not out there, people are noticing what's happening and what's going on in your life and in your business. And I think that's something to always be aware of. What's that? You know, it's not about being fake, right? It's about being authentic and being authentically you. But again, not having to share every single thing that, you know, nobody needs to know that what I had for lunch today, every single day, right? Unless you're in that industry. You know, so good. So Pauline, as we wrap up, tell them a little bit about like where they can get in touch with you. If somebody has some copywriting needs, how they get in touch with you, website, phone number, whatever it is that you want to share, social media.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is on my website. It's thecopyalchemist.com, because I'm a bit metaphysical and magical. So I like the whole idea of alchemy. That comes from turning lead into gold. So that's turning words into money. On there, people can sign up to I'd send out a weekly newsletter. It's called the Knowledge Nuggets. And that's I've been told it's like a seminar in a email. So I think that's where people would get the most benefit out of that. And they can read the blog before they subscribe, just to see if they like me or if that's a good fit, or just follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, those kind of things, but under Pauline Longdon. So London with a G in the middle. So,
London with a G in the middle. That's great. That's great. Good. Well, I appreciate your time. This has been amazing. You showed some great tips. I love it. I love that you were, you know, open enough to share your story. Thank you very much for doing that, because I know that's gonna resonate with somebody, right? Whether it's military base, whether it's just a queer person that, you know, has gone through things, you know, in their life that you never know where people are and what they need to hear to have that positive outcome. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it very, very much. As always, you guys at the Queer Profits podcast, again, the 3 pillars, we're all about inclusion, community, and growth. We hit on, I think, all 3 of those today, which I love doing. And so if you guys, you know where to find us, if you have questions or anything like that, let us know. I'm Diane Conklin with Queer Profits Podcast and queerprofits.com. And we'll see you again on the next session. Thanks again. I appreciate your time, Pauline.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Good. Thank you.